these are sandpaper numbers. In language area, we have sandpaper letters. And so it's a tactile experience. The teacher demonstrates, and then the child can trace again to begin to identify and internalize associating the name with the symbol, but also it's preparation for writing the symbol also. So after a child knows the quantity and can identify and count 4 up through whatever number, we don't have to go all the way to 10. A child who knows, who can do this quantity and can then like say, show me 4, count to 4, and then the next step is, what's this? And we call that the third period. It's a more difficult cognitive skill to be able to spit it back out. But once the child knows the quantity and knows the symbols, then we put them together. And so the child counts and matches the symbol. And with just this little bit of knowledge, a child can add and subtract. And they're learning more each time. One of the next lessons in math is the spindles. Here we're actually manipulating spindles, so there's a little more to do. We introduce the concept of 0, which has none. We can also introduce the concept of sets with this material by tying a ribbon around each of the groups after they've had some practice counting. So often with Montessori materials, there are a variety of lessons that can be achieved. And then usually the next material is cards and counters. And a teacher would demonstrate counting those slowly and carefully. But again, the child has had a lot of experience in counting, but with these we introduce the concept of odd. It's practice counting, but then we also are able to introduce the concept of odd and even numbers in the way they're laid out. And of course, if we're maybe not, of course. If we're demonstrating to children, Kenyon would be sitting on the floor and a child would be beside him, and it would be a very focused experience and very slow and careful movements. But we're doing this a little bit more quickly for you all. So again, a child can begin adding and subtracting once we have this. Adding with objects, subtracting with objects, multiplying, and then dividing. And we have a variety of materials for accomplishing those operations with small numbers, with manipulatives. We move quickly into bigger numbers, again, introducing the quantity first. This is the gold-bead material.
This is 1 unit. This is 110. Show me 1 unit. Show me 110. What is this? What is this? This is 100. And they can compare and see, that you can count the units on the 10 bar. We can count the tens and the 100. Sometimes they love to count all 100 units on the 100. That might be the first lesson, and then at a future lesson, after they've had some practice learning the names and familiarizing them, then we would introduce the 1,000 key. And they can stack up 10 of these to compare that it makes 1,000.
162 with symbols and beads. And after practicing composing numbers, then you can compose two numbers and add them together. And there are a lot of steps between that and what Kenyon is going to show you, but.
And normally I would sit on the other side here, obviously with the child, but just to demonstrate. 2, 3, 4 units. And initially we would introduce a lesson that does not make more than 10. This one is what we call dynamic, so there will be some exchanging. 1 10, 2 10s, 3 10s, 4 10s, 5 10s, 6 10s, 7 10s, 8 10s, 9 10s. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 100, 1000.
And the child would hear 10 hundreds is the same as, and often they'll fill in the blank. That's the right number of eights, isn't it? Because 7 and 4.
Yeah, not 3 in that second step.
We get the concept. Yeah.
No wonder my kids add.
This is.
But that's the process, and that's what's important. Because children do make mistakes, and at this stage, of course the teacher would present it appropriately, but children do make mistakes at this stage, and that's how it's important. We're really looking at them to get the process of making those exchanges and knowing place value. And a very similar process in multiplying. And then you can probably imagine subtracting, and then they can also divide with this material. So it's very exciting for young children to work with big numbers.
I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, there's so much I just took on faith growing up. You know, the teacher said these numbers are odd, these numbers are even. Okay. But when you lay it out like that, and the evens have 2 in a row and the odd has 1, that makes sense. And when you lay out the 10 bars and you see it's the same as 1,000, it just struck me how much I just had to take on faith. And this makes it so clear.
I was quite encouraged that it's not a mistake, it's an opportunity to try again.
How do you encourage? I mean, you hear news reports. Math and science are the 2 subjects we lack the most in our educational system in the United States. How do you encourage students to participate and do the math lessons? I mean, I know Watt's well enough that he's going to choose a book most days over. So how do you encourage this? Is it?
So when they see a material like this, part of what we do is arrange it in such a way as to entice them. And part of our
Yeah, peer pressure too.
Peer pressure. Yeah, peer pressure's good.
For my kids, they'll say, well, so-and-so is doing that, and I really want to do that. You know what I mean? So they want to be doing what everybody else is doing.
This morning, when I came this morning to take some pictures, Watts and Ryan were working on the studies together.
See, he's doing math and he's hiding that. He's a closet mathematician.
Well, that's almost Saturday night. They were running around screaming.
But I will tell you too, my oldest, this has been a couple months ago, but I didn't even know what she was doing. I mean, except when I come and watch her, you know. But she can do the really, really big numbers, you know, like, we didn't even know she did that yet, you know. So, I mean, they're learning things more than probably, unless you're asking them every day, are they showing you? I mean, I think that's been our experience, is they know how to do so much more than I even know.
I also think in some ways, because this is not a worksheet with 1+1, you don't kind of know that you're doing that because it's more like a game. I know that that's how it's worked with my two so far. It's like, you know, I sat and down with the worksheet, she would not want a whole lot to do with it, but she thinks this is like the best game.